I'm Kira Cleveland, and this is Human Intelligence. With my co-host, Ned Hayes, we talk about the importance of human creativity in the age of AI. Welcome to the future.
The Human Intelligence Podcast is excited to welcome Taya Smith to the show. She's a passionate advocate of human beings in the world of technology. She's a human-centered problem solver. She's good at a lot of things, and we're excited to hear about some of those things today. So welcome to the show, Taya.
Yeah, it's great to have you on board. I thought I'd give our listeners just a little bit more background on you. So you're a politics or legal grad who rode the 90s internet wave and became a code and design and digital strategy unicorn and helped everyone get online. What I understand is your work ranged from national politicians to rock stars to big technology companies. And I love that. In 2018, you kind of started shifting the psychological and social impact, introspective space about what you were doing in tech. Ended up quitting tech, and now you're studying for your juris doctor, specialize in tech law, and help users. It's quite the journey.
That's it. Yeah, it makes some twisted logical sense. In politics is sales, right? It's kind of, politics is ultimately about, well, especially in the US, politics is marketing. I enjoyed the campaign part, so I fell into it through digital campaigns. And just when I went to university, I had a choice of degree, and it was multimedia or computer science. Those were the choices. This wasn't a degree. It wasn't, the user experience design wasn't a thing. You had like interface interaction and stuff as part of, you didn't have that as an option.
Right. So it was more of an evolution. It was your journey.
Yeah. So I just got a liberal arts degree, and a degree in political science as you do. Right. And so I've always just been interested in people and all those processes and all those things. And so obviously I sort of fell into web design through, working with musicians. And this actually links to what you guys do, which is one of my big passions when I first started. My first business was called Link Artist Multimedia. How dated is that?
Really?
But it was Link Art. It was very passionate about musicians. A big cohort of my clients when I first started as sort of like that old school flash fancy website was photographers, like wedding photographers. And getting people online, building a community, that true fan stuff, that sort of that stuff that made everyone excited about the internet. And then I hit 2014 with Cambridge, all this Cambridge Analytica stuff hadn't come out yet, but I was just sort of feeling it. As part of this wave, a small blip in that wave, I think a lot of us in the early days of social, we were appointed as the social media expert by our networks because we knew about it, right? If you remember, if you were one of those people in your tribe, it wasn't. I was always that person, like, computers, help me. That was kind of that was that early days, right? And so people came to me and to do that stuff, and I always thought about what could be done. But there was always that line in my mind about it being wrong and that you shouldn't. So I thought of all of these products over the years. You always think of all these products, right? And one was sentiment measuring with Twitter. I know that I'll get to the Cambridge Analytica point, but it is, you see where it sort of does relate. But I started to say, like, live, real-time Google Maps sentiment analysis for politicians using Twitter conversations. And you see how naive that is now, because it's actually, I actually went, no, that's unethical. I was presenting to politicians and saying, you should be using Twitter because it's, where the zeitgeist is, blah, 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 right? All that stuff. Right. The pitch. Yeah. And so I always I was like, well, no, you can just you can do this. This is the psychographic like data, and you could, you have access to amazing insights around human behavior. And again, that decision at the ballot box, right? That those nudges. And when you do that stuff as a marketer, you intuitively go, I know this. It was obvious in retrospect to a lot of people.
When we're in the midst of creating a black mirror type of reality, you don't always recognize it, right? It's only later. You said it's obvious. I'm not sure it was all that obvious for all of those of us who were tiptoeing along the path And then we got there and we're like, holy crap, what did we do? Right?
Yeah, it's only again, it's that hindsight bias where you go, there was a glitch in the matrix where, but I have analyzed a lot of this self-talk, and so Cambridge Analytica, for the audience, might want to know that basically what they did, the old BuzzFeed quizzes. If you probably remember, like they would take quizzes, right, and create these quiz apps, and basically they were using that to gather, because you can extrapolate a lot from somebody based on their media consumption, based on all of this stuff. And what Cambridge Analytica were doing in the background was triangulating that data, right, to create a behavioral profile, a persuasion profile. Didn't start with them. It started with, other politicians. But Cambridge Analytica was the point where there was it was effectively a Facebook data breach, right? They were siphoning off all of Facebook's behavioral data, but sort of pulling it all together to target people and retarget people with advertising for political purposes, right? Something that seems absolutely quaint now because, it was sort of, we're just flooded with that 24/7 now. But so that was a turning point. But again, when you work in these spaces, you entertain the thought, but you put brakes on it and go, no, that's wrong.
But also at the time too, when we were doing all of this like Facebook advertising and Facebook data graphing and the social graph was the big move, right? When all of that was happening, trust and safety and ethics and AI were big buzzwords, and people were hiring trust and safety. So I think you and I, and probably many other people, Kira as well, thought like, oh, this is in good hands. We're going to have the smart trust and safety people take care of us. And now we've seen every tech company has divested themselves of trust and safety on a massive level, have gotten rid of programs that are designed to uplift minority voices, women's voices, and have pretty much cut the legs out from under any claim to be ethical. So not to be too negative here, but
no,
I'm
you're correct.
I'm leading right into some of your, from the U.S. perspective, quite savage posts on LinkedIn.
Yeah, Australians are considered rude. We're just Australian.
Well, about the current state of affairs. So it really takes us into some of your perspective, which I think is really rich and valuable right now.
I think having clarity. We're flooded with so much, nonsense. I did take an interest in some of these little signals like the culture wars and Gamergate and those sorts of key incidents online where things were just a little wonky. Where things were, just to say for people, where there were these little things, these key events with the internet where I could see the potential for people to just completely create narrative. Right? It doesn't matter who it was, like whoever tried. It was more about the capability for me. It was never about, you always get accused or whatever. But you get what I'm saying? It was always about how these tools can be misused. It just was singing at me like an alarm bell, right? And so I actually came to this view through the sort of culture wars of Twitter, right? This whole thing around Twitter, right? It's got such a small market share. And such a small user base, but it is so was so incredibly influential. Okay. And so seeing through some of this veneer of the things that you talked about, like with trust and safety, and I come from a very materialist thing. Like I don't talk about thought experiments or for or against, I go, what's happening now and what is the problem and how do we get through? And so I always had this weird way of seeing right through these things and going, oh, that's optics, that's PR, that's and so I think that initially I think I held on longer than I should have with Elon Musk, right? I held on way longer than I should have because I was always giving the benefit of the doubt with tech guys for too long. That's my mistake and my sunk costs. And we all did. No, where we all gave the benefit of the doubt and said that sort of
latitude.
Yeah. I didn't want to say rope because but
that latitude.
The latitude. That was the word I was trying to think of. So I was too charitable with these guys for too long, and when the red flags are there, for a long time, and you kind of ignore these things. And the trust and safety stuff, because I did actually see sort of that start to be weaponized in various ways. The algorithms making decisions that should have human discretion to them. There's an unfairness to these algorithmic decisions that is not cross-cultural. And I use that as an example. The CCDH and those sorts of organizations were great, but they were kind of really obfuscating a lot of the data there around these things, where a lot of Australians and innocent people were being sort of caught up in these algorithms.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but
Go ahead.
One of your posts that I really enjoyed was how every C-level executive in Hustle Bro has basically fallen for a modern day Nigerian prince scam. Love that concept. And with your focus now in tech law, how does that tie in? Like, why tech law now for you? And like, what is your hope for the cases you can really champion and use with that?
Well, I was always going to go to law school. I just never got around to it. So I fell into tech from that, and I was going to go to law school at some point. So that was always my wiring. Right. I just never got around to it. So that's, I kind of went through that thing where I was like, what am I going to do now? So I thought I'll do a grad dip in psychology first, because I thought that the solution to this was therapeutic, because I saw the mental health sort of aspect of this stuff too. But I also don't like fixing things. I like starting fights. So I was like, no, I'll be a lawyer.
So law is perfect. There we go. It was time. It was time to pivot.
There's people who like solving like conflict and resolving conflict. I like starting it.
I love it.
But it's so for that, but consumer, the thing that I found really interesting, I went into the law thinking that this was a wicked problem, right? I'm sure you've heard this word before, wicked problems in policy, where there's not necessarily one, it's any, all, whatever you want, anything you can do, lots of things, many things, all capitalism, right? It's like one of these wicked problems, right?
Yeah.
That are very difficult to solve, multidisciplinary, whatever. Okay. So where do you focus your energy when these things? I thought that I was going into a massive wicked problem with law, where we'd need to have law reform, we'd need new laws, we'd need new setups, we'd need all of these things. And as I learned more about the law, and in Australia it's different because we've got different systems, but just similar, right?
Sure.
But you got like more litigation, so there's a lot more opportunity there. But the more I learned about the law is that I realized that actually the law already existed. The law already exists. Okay. It's just it's a political problem of not being enforced. So I've gone through this law degree thinking that I was going to do my final thesis on the great big legal change that needs to occur. And it's just misleading and deceptive conduct. I don't know what the words are in America for that, but it's consumer law. It's consumer law. It is copyright. It's these, they're very basic. Yeah. And when you get back to first principles of law, and that's what I was saying about clarity before, is sitting back and having clarity, because they sort of, lots of words and buzzwords, and you kind of feel like it's a tsunami of gaslit, and you feel gaslit. That's why everyone feels gaslit, right? Not to weaponize therapy speak, but people feel gaslit all the time because it is very simple, which is it wasn't theirs. They lied. Give it back. It's not simple, but it is simple.
Right. So just a small example. Facebook clearly from their internal chats indicated that they were taking a huge amount of information from published authors and scanning it into their systems, and with no acknowledgement of copyright, no acknowledgement of the author's moral rights, all of that. And I was talking to somebody at Google recently, and I mentioned this could expose Facebook to liability because, as you pointed out, it's illegal, right? And the person from Google said, well, you and I both know that's not going to happen, that Facebook will suffer no consequences. And that's exactly what you're talking about, that the law exists. Yeah. All it requires is enforcement of intellectual property law, of ensuring that those who are doing something wrong are actually held to account, to your point.
And for me, I go, that's just, regardless of the legal speak, regardless of the reasons why, it's not fair.
Wild. Yeah, it's not fair.
Just, on its face. And I think we accept too much of those things that are just, again, it sounds like I'm 5 years. I went to do a postgraduate legal degree thinking that I'd be speaking in legal jargon about, privacy law or these things. And for me,
Big
it's
ideas.
just like, they stole it. Pay for it.
It's simple.
Start a dividend, pay people what they owed. And it really is it's a simple contract. Like, these terms of service are unconscionable on their face. That's why they settle out of court, because they don't want that contract to be in a higher
examined
court, because
in
it's
a
going
courtroom.
to. They don't, because they are absolutely, again, contract. I was done with this tech problem in Contracts and Torts 101. It was done. I'd finished it. It was,
you figured it
and
out.
now it's, and it was just, and
Okay.
so for me, it's a more interesting thing of, why is it not enforced? Why are people so there's a
and
there's
along those lines
despair that
like,
goes with it.
absolutely, you talk about people feeling gaslit by this whole AI thing and the tech companies and their work being taken without permission, right? And what's interesting is, all around us, people are pushing for AI. I mean, AI is being pushed actively to be used within businesses, used at users, right? It's this flood of trying to get AI in front of people, and we don't necessarily know why. And everyone who's saying it's the best thing ever, like those tech bros, are they getting fooled? Are they just fooling themselves? Or is it trying to just be fooling us? Where are you with the AI?
Like the wicked problem, the answer is yes, all of those things, and also extra other things. So I think when you zoom out, and I'm sure you've observed the behavior over the years with tech founders, right? A lot of them are just doing what they were told to do by VCs. I see VCs as the source of the problem and the incentives for, I think VCs run the show. I think founders, for the most part, they're in an idle audition, trying to make it big, and they're humiliating themselves in front of the audience to try and get on, right? That's kind of, they're just trying to get found and get discovered, right? Because I've been a founder of product. I've seen the deal. Again, I've seen the deal, right? Which is, I want 70% of your business. I will give you barely enough, with this promise of a payday when you IPO, when you go public. Okay, that's their whole thing. Okay, and that's the predatory nature of that. So they're not entirely victims, because you can say no to that. They have agency. Okay, but there's also these sort of micro cults that form in these innovation spaces and these sort of co-working. It's an echo chamber. It's a bubble, right? Once you're in and you've made a bad business deal, what are you going to do? You're going to cope. You're going to rationalize all of the decisions that you make. Silicon Valley, the show from HBO, is the single greatest show on the planet Earth, because it's honest about the compromises that Richard made. See, in Silicon Valley, they turned it off, the AI at the end. If you remember the show, they went, we made this thing, it's bad, kill it. Here they went, we made this thing, we're going to get rich, cool. And so that's
right.
You see,
so it's not actually the tech itself. The technology itself is not evil. It's not the Terminator. It's the way it's being used, and it's the capitalistic system around it that is trying to extract the most amount of money at great human cost, rather than understanding the balance between human needs and technology. Is that what you're saying in a nutshell?
And this is the notion of like disruption, which is that Facebook, they all said we're disrupting the old guys. Okay. This disruption mindset, like South Park make fun of this stuff, like the bikes, throwing the bikes around everywhere, Uber just going in and disrupting markets. That should have been nipped in the bud earlier. Like that just entering markets in that way should have been, because they've basically gone and done the same thing just with AI and caused massive disruption and massive chaos.
My point was that technology is not bad. It's the system that has been designed around it that is forcing us into a world that is not human-centered.
Yeah, well, and that has happened over time. That's the mindset of tech, which is they think they're innovating and disrupting. And we went through this with social. If we had that, they've learned nothing from social media, which was that because I was one of those voices, which was, if you resist this thing, you're kind of outdated. Get with it, grandma. And then eventually you're the grandma, and you go, oh, okay, grandma knew some stuff. You go through these cycles, and there was some wisdom to that, which was corporations. I think there's a whole bunch of corporations that missed out that early social stuff because they were resisting it. They were very risk averse. They didn't know, and I feel like there is something going on here where there's a FOMO with a lot of these corporations where they missed out this wave first time and they think this is the answer. I mean, I would argue that there's a religious component to some of this stuff as well.
Oh, intriguing.
Which is, I'm working on a piece right now that you probably like, which is around the feudal lords, right? In the early days, the king said, God said that I need all the land. God said that, okay? I am the king. He said, I'm the king. I need, and therefore, as the king, I tell you that me and my guys need all of your stuff. You see how that kind of familiar.
Happened? Right.
And so, then now it's like the magic box said, I should be getting all of the energy and the land. And people want meaning. They want something. And I think that this does link to our existential fears. If it's a feedback loop, it's not just capitalism. Yes, that and plus squared. But I think it's a more where people want this magic box to fix all the problems. They think that climate, these things are going to fix it. And if we push through and this last hit a bit of coal and this last bit of nuclear stuff, energy, and these investments, that we're going to somehow cleanse ourselves. Ooh, we're going to cleanse ourselves of these sins, I suppose, of, not to make it hokey, but I'm still working on the metaphor, but this idea of like, we've messed up for the last 100 years, that if we just do this one last bit, we'll be somehow forgiven for all of these other things that, there's just this weird undercurrent that's more than just capitalism. I think there's something about post-COVID trauma and these things that I think people are looking for meaning and they've attached it to this box, this magic box.
Right.
And these guys are exploiting it, right?
Right. And to your point about it being like a faith or like a God, some of these people are believing that AGI or that the future will somehow be super intelligent and will be transformed, which is very evangelical language, transform the future, humanity will be different, everything will be saved. It's very faith-based and it doesn't have much grounding in reality.
No. Pay $29.95 and go and have your confessional, say 3 Hail Marys, and you are forgiven of your sins. And I can see why. I'm saying, like, once you see that link, you go, okay. But I think that there again, but I understand. I try to empathize with people and sort of be sort of charitable and meet people, understand where they're coming from. And I think it does come down to alienation, right? And people sort of being alone and feeling like that the magic box listens to them and no one else does, and all of those sorts of things. I think people want it to happen. I think they want it.
I get that, and I get that.
I think they want it to be. They want that freedom, but tech guys exploited that. So with social, they said the internet was going to be democratizing, and if we just kept telling them everything that we were feeling, we just typed in the box, that they would meet their end of the deal. That we were just writing in the box, how are you feeling? Well, okay, that sounds fun. And we weren't really thinking about the other stuff, right? We were uncritically writing in,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Along the lines of complicated relationships, one thing I wanted to touch on that you wrote was how art needs money, but money hates art. Tell me a little bit more about that and that perspective.
That's always been the case. But money always wants a return on investment. Okay, so like the money, there's no such thing as sort of, I don't believe necessarily that there is any such thing as free money under this system.
Sure.
I think it can be, but I think that it's usually like not. Yeah, I don't know. That's one of the areas where there's debate, right? But there's always strings attached.
With that earlier example of Facebook taking all of this content and mixing it together and then regurgitating content that is similar to human beings, but is not the same. Let's be clear. It's not the same as a human being writing a book or writing a story or creating an image. I was struck by your comment on LinkedIn about, art needs money, money hates art. I feel like
Mm.
this is an example of money hating the process of art. And that's actually what
Yeah.
we're about at our little company,
Mm. Yeah.
trying to revalue human creativity. So I'm curious if I could put you on the spot, like, why should human
Mm.
creativity be valued? Why should we actually care?
I think those that are creative and who are artists already understand the inherent value of the process, right? But
Mhm.
for the people who don't understand the value of art, okay, think about just from a purely pragmatic perspective when you talk about CEOs. We're going to have no CEOs or the senior managers that are any good in 10 years or 15 years if you don't have people who are interns now or junior staff now.
Sure.
Because the grunt work is where you get the skills, where you accumulate knowledge, where you accumulate experience, where you accumulate soft skills, all of
Mhm.
the things that go into expertise. And again, all work is valuable, right? I'm saying all work is
Mhm.
valuable, all labor is valuable. Anyone who creates knows that that is fulfilling and it makes you smarter and wiser and more loving. And, there's all these things. There's friction that you go through when you are creating that, like, is,
Mhm.
if you can push through the other side, it's a personal growth thing. So if you're purely narcissistic and not an artist and don't understand from a purely self-interest point of view, it gives you better skills across the board.
Mhm.
It builds muscle. And I feel like that's why there's just an atrophy of everything, because I feel like
Mm.
that inability to encounter friction, that intolerance for just that little bit of friction and pain and annoyance. And so I think that friction in the creative process is valuable. And I think that artists see the value in it. In terms of Facebook taking that and sort of creating a facsimile of it, or I think what it does at a visceral level is there's all of that personal growth. We don't want you to grow. We want you to just produce, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
what I get from it. Just, I mean, for me, I'm not opposed to the technology. It's the externalities around it
Yeah.
Mhm.
that really, like, on balance, it's like the technology itself, it's cool. Like, I go, oh yeah, it's cool, but it shouldn't have been implemented that way.
Well, and
Mm.
along those lines of the struggle and what we need to
Mm.
grow, let's say for a minute you can wave your magic wand, you can declare anything you want here, right? What's a step that you think people or companies can take that can help actually move us towards a better world?
A step which is to enforce the law as it stands.
Mhm.
I know that's it sounds
No,
simple, but
I love it.
I mean, it was 2 steps forward with Lena Khan and the FTC, and I think it's going to be a few steps back now. It's not that simple because some areas Australia is not enforcing things where America surprisingly is. Like, you guys are the Wild West when it comes to sort of capitalism. The answer is enforce the law as it stands in your country, protect consumers. I know it sounds, again, I don't want to oversimplify it, but
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
we got to go
it's
back to the basics.
absolutely.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend that how many 100 years of like jurisprudence and I've suddenly going to go and change it all. It's like, no, it's there. We figured stuff out, which is that it's wrong to steal, can't hurt people on purpose. You can't go letting off bombs in the middle of like capital cities. And it's like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I hate oversimplifying because I know the lawyers will be breaking out in hives. But there was this judge, Frank Easterbrook, and he did a
Mhm.
presentation in 1999 about the law of the horse. And it was basically at a cyber law conference where he said, it's basically, what do you want to do? Create laws just for horses? Like when they first created horses and carts, it was like, no, they adapted the current law for the horses and then the horse
Mhm.
law for the cars. And then you don't necessarily need to have tech law. The laws are there. They can be adapted because we've got principles, right? We've got legal
Mhm.
principles that apply. And on its face, like with artists and copyright is the classic example. If Sam Altman gets what he wants, he has to erase 100+ years of like jurisprudence and legal work and decisions and precedent. He has to undo that stuff because we know
Mhm.
what the law is, which is that you can't pass things off as your own. They're
Yeah.
hiding behind fair use there, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas here, we don't have that either. Like, we don't have fair use. So, but if they get what they want, they're having to justify erasing progress
Mhm.
to undo copyright law. We know what the law is, which is
Yeah.
you can't pass things off as your own. You can't you have moral rights to your work, and you get to determine how it is used. And also, if it is used in a derogatory way, you have, some claim there as well, right? That's a principle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somehow along the way, these principles were replaced with quibbles. And these guys, because of the corporate lawyers and that sort of stuff, they go, well, we'll just defend it when it comes up, and we'll just abuse the system and hop between jurisdictions and hop between things and make it so that you can't actually sue us, force you into arbitration, all of these sorts of things. So if I could make the world a better place, I would get some political will. That's a very magic one thing, because
Sure.
But enforce the law as it stands.
It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Talk about kind of the history, how we got to where we're at today, some of the questions about intellectual property theft, some of the questions about what are tech bros? Are they actually foolish, or are they trying to fool us? Maybe both. And those dreams of AGI being full of faithful evangelical talk. So thank you. And I look forward to reading more from you online. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. You can find out more about any of these news items and hear the complete interview on the extended premium version of our podcast at humanintelligence.news. Today's episode was produced by Ned Hayes and engineered by Muhammad Adnan. Our analog-only human-themed music was created for the Human Intelligence podcast by Josh Pinkston of Nature and Spirit. This episode, and every episode, is brought to you by the Human Intelligence Institute team. That's all for Human Intelligence. Thanks for listening to today's episode. As always, this episode is available online at humanintelligence.news.